Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101 back at you again with some more lore. And today's video, boys and gals, we're back with what our people get wrong about X series. And today, we're talking about the one, the only, the great warhawk of Chagorus himself, the Khan, baby. Our second of the Primarchs. And we're going to be answering the question, what do people get wrong about good old 40k Genghis Khan? For whilst everyone can agree he's indeed the most underrated Primarch, there are some who tout him as the best. But is this the case, or is he actually the worst? So strap on in, buckle up, grab a snack, as well as some good old throat singing pipes, and let's get cracking on with today's video. So, why on earth am I asking the question, is the Khan the worst? Well, quite clearly I was doing some research and I found out that a few people have touched upon this here and there. A little bit surprised, honestly, that anyone had this argument to begin with, and personally I think it's an argument worth having, purely just so we can get to the end of it, which we'll find out later. But before we can talk about all that nitty-gritty stuff, let's answer the question of who is the Khan? Jaghatai Khan is the Primarch of the 5th Legion, the White Scars, previously known as the Star Hunters, and he grew up upon the world of Chagorus. Chagorus was known for two parts, its massive city-states and its wide sweeping grass plains. Jaghatai Khan landed in the grass plains and eventually became associated with the nomadic tribes of the area. Eventually, however, he would grow as a warrior until one fateful day an opposing tribe would raid his tribe and kill his adoptive father, as well as several other people, and take a bunch of loot. This so enraged the Khan that he went over to the neighboring tribe, got everything back, and utterly destroyed them. Thus did the Khan decide to end this cycle of back and forth by simply uniting all of the tribes under one banner, for he would be the great Khan of the plains. From there, he would then gather up all of the plains and declare war upon the city-states, and eventually begin a long drawn-out campaign to fight them, with eventually him conquering the entirety of the world. Yet, this was enough for the Khan, and he'd be quite content on his world, until big old Golden Daddy came a-poppin' and told him that he had a bunch of boys out there and he was destined to be a Genghis Khan of the stars, to ride forth into the great sea of the vastness of space, and conquer and sing as his heart's contented. So, the Khan did accept, and he'd be reunited with his legion, and together they would go about conquering the stars, fighting forward and making glorious exploits. Except, not really. The White Scars had always been a forgotten legion, and even when their Primarch rejoined them, they were always at the back front. People didn't really know much about them, nor did the Khan was willing to share. He was a pretty tight-lipped guy. Now, if he really thought that you cared, he might, but all in all, he wasn't really one for remembrances and all the hubbub and fuss. The White Scars were definitely one of the we-get-it-done legions, rather than the front-and-center legions. And this would lead to people thinking them nothing than mere butchers and barbaric idiots, whereas in reality they were quite cultured, and knew a lot of stuff. And eventually, all this would culminate in the Heresy, where people would be unsure of the Khan's loyalties. But unlike most Primarchs, he didn't immediately pick a side, but decided to have a measured take, and decide who was truly at fault, before ultimately siding with the Emperor. From there he would continue to serve throughout the entirety of the Heresy, being a stalwart loyalist, fighting off own traitors within his legion and eventually legion terror, where he would serve as the mighty outrider of the vanguard, thrusting forth into the traitors' defenses, and playing a vital role in ensuring that terror did not fall. From there he would continue proud and stalwartly during the Scouring, until a dark Eldar raid on his homeworld of Chagorus would force him to thrust himself into the never-ending madness that is Komara, for he would retrieve his people, or we would die trying. And the Khan is still out there in Komara till this day, riding at Mach 10, riding at Mach 10, singing at Volume 11, bedding wenches and slaying wretches, because that's just what the Khan do. But that's the TLDR. Now, the question is, why do people say that the Khan is one of the worst Primarchs, or why do people not like the Khan? Well, quite simply put, some people believe him just to be a bit too finicky. They think that he's a bit too undecided. He's a fence-sitter. The argument goes that the Khan supposedly knows everything, but why does he still make decisions then? He knows that the Emperor is not exactly the best guy ever, and he doesn't have the highest opinion of the Emperor, yet he still sides with him. During the book Scars, we see this again, where he meets the Alpha Legion and the Space Wolves, but he doesn't engage either foe, but instead decides to go back to Terra and begin discussing with the Emperor himself to find out exactly what was wrong. People will then make the argument that again and again he makes decisions that while you may have an argument for them, ultimately they don't pick one side or another. And because of that, he waits until the last moment where he actually does choose to serve. And only then, in the Siege of Terra, does he actually finally do something. And since he's so terribly effective, it makes them wonder what would have happened if he had just stopped being a fence-sitter in the beginning, gotten up and actually did something. Also, his character kind of rubs them the wrong way. It's a question of, oh, if he's so cool and understanding and noble, why does he not just talk to people? Why does he not just tell them what happened? Why doesn't he try and change anything? If he knows that his people are perceived as barbarians, why doesn't he try and change it? Why doesn't he actually try and make an attempt? Why doesn't he invite remembrances? It doesn't make any sense for him if he does all this, yet he's upset that people think him barbarians when he actively pursues that. To a lot of people, the Khan just comes off as someone who always ends up picking the middle route, because he's cautious. But in doing so, he picks nothing. And to a lot of people, that just rubs them the wrong way. They can't enjoy the character because they just see him as this fence sitter who never ends up doing anything worthy of note, until he actually does pick a side, and when he does, he's so terribly competent at it, they're just left facepalming thinking, why couldn't you have done that sooner? And that is just the crux of the whole thing. And to those people, I quite simply say, you're missing the point of the Khan. I have made no secret that I quite love the Khan, but to the people who love the Khan like myself, we can also make the same mistake. We tend to laud the Khan as a super underrated Primarch, one of the best Primarchs, the greatest Primarch even, up there with Sanguinius and Horus as some of the best. And we'll go on and on and on about how he is truly the greatest Primarch, how he's an amazing character, about how he's perfect and how he does everything perfectly, how he's so calm and cool and measured, and we will say the exact opposite, that the fact that he does take the measured approach separates him from a bunch of the Primarchs. He doesn't choose the Emperor because he thinks the Emperor is best. He chooses the Emperor because he is the lesser of two evils compared to Chaos. He doesn't fence it when he sees the Space Wolves as well as the Alpha Legion fighting. He doesn't do that. Instead, he realizes that if he attacks one side, he is going to put that side in the victory, and he can't do that. So rather, he leaves them at a stalemate and find out what is happening. In this case, it is indeed better because he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Basically, we understand why the Khan does these things. And to be clear, this is indeed why he does that. It's not he's a fence sitter, but we too get it wrong. So that begs the question, what is it are we getting wrong that both his detractors and his fans end up getting wrong? And what we end up getting wrong about the Khan is that he's not a perfect character, but nor is he a terrible character. He's not the best and he's not the worst. He's not the perfect character, but that's because he's a measured character. He is a good character, full stop. But not good in the sense of in-universe. Frankly, there's an argument to make that he is, and I believe that he is. But moreover, he's a good character out of universe. As a whole, he's incredibly well-rounded, he's human, he understands his flaws, he makes mistakes and he overcomes them. And that's what people get wrong about the Khan. He is just a good character. But he's not a good character because he's great in universe. He's a good character because he's just so well written out of universe. And frankly, we have GW to thank for that, ironically. The books about the White Scars, Scars being the main one, gave an incredible depth to the character and completely changed the outlook on him. Before he had little to no lore, these new books of the Horus Heresy actually gave the character something that we could sink our teeth into, and we found it very tasty indeed. The Khan is a character that understands his limitations, he understands his expectations, and he knows what world truly is. He understands the soul of humanity, arguably the best out of any and all Primarchs. He knows that the Emperor is not the greatest thing for humanity. To him, the Emperor isn't the master of mankind. He isn't a lord of savior. He isn't the best thing possible. He is simply the only alternative. A tyrannical god of order is better than maniacal gods of chaos. The Khan understands that, despite hating it so much. For those of you who don't know, the Khan hated the idea of the Imperial Truth and the Imperium as a large. The Khan is all about being free-spirited. Freedom is humanity's birthright, but freedom with order. Freedom without order is just chaos, and chaos is abhorrent to freedom. What the Emperor wanted was anything but freedom. The core tenets of the Imperial Truth said that any and all faith was malarkey. Freedom is doing whatever you believe is right, and that includes freedom to worship, freedom to have faith. The Emperor inherently robbed humanity of one of its core tenets, the free will to choose to believe in something, to have faith in something. To the Khan, that was morally reprehensible at best, and at worst, a total failure of everything that humanity had strove for. The Khan disagreed with the whole idea of control. He disagreed with the Emperor's ways, he disagreed with all of it. But why did he go with it? It wasn't because he was a fence sitter that just didn't want to upset anyone. It wasn't that he didn't value his ideals so strongly that he decided to fight for them. It wasn't that he saw that the Emperor was the best and knew that this was the only choice for humanity. It wasn't that he truly knew what chaos was and knew that the Emperor knew best that he trusted him. No. It wasn't because he was the best of the best or the worst of the worst. It's because he was human. And he was presented with two choices. A kinda bad tyrannical god of order, or a 100% bad four gods of chaos. The Emperor may be a tyrant, but they're called the ruinous powers for a reason. They will ruin humanity. That is why the Khan chose him. And again, when we talk about the White Scars interacting with the Wolves in the Alpha Legion, the Khan did not choose to fight on either side because he was a fence sitter who didn't want to attack any other foe, he didn't want to upset anybody, he wanted to keep his options open. That's not why he did it. Nor did he do it because he understood just how important this act would be and how he could tip the balance of the scales. That wasn't the case either. He didn't do anything because he didn't know what the fuck was going on. 2 of his brothers were now trying to kill each other. 3, technically. And he was like, alright, I'm not gonna do anything, don't do anything, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to dad and see what's up. It's a response that a measured character would give. Because if you see 2 of your friends fighting, you're going to try and figure out what's wrong instead of just throwing hands. We often fall into this trap of seeing a lot of the Primarch's behavior, and a lot of it is just childish. It's super amateurish, and it's super toxic, and it's not good behavior. Just immediately throwing hands and immediately deciding that now is the time to fight over small occurrences that could have been talked out is crazy. Another example is that I hear a lot of people get upset at Gilliman for not immediately acting on Calth, but you need to understand, your ally, your brother, all of a sudden is firing on you, you think it's a friendly fire incident, you don't want to fire back and kill someone because it's a mistake. It makes sense. That's a measured response. But because we have people like Fulgrim, like Angron, like Perturabo, like Leman Russ, like Ferris Manus, who just act on sheer childish impulse at times, when we see a Primarch actually act calmly and manifestedly, it makes us question why are they acting the way they're acting. And we think they're wrong. Well, it's actually the other way around. They're doing the correct thing, not the wrong thing. And the Khan is the prime example of that. The Khan is a good character. He's not a perfect character, nor is he a terrible character. We see that even learning with his legion. When in some of his legion the Terranborn split, he then finally realizes that he didn't do such a good job blending them as he thought. There was still a lot of great rifts within his legion that he didn't fully understand. And because of his own blindsidedness, this led to his sons spilling each other's blood. This was caused by a mistake which he made. All this bloodshed could have been avoided if the Khan had put more thought and effort into it. Throughout the entirety of the Horus Heresy and the Great Crusade, the Khan shows time and time again that he is an actual character. Out of universe, he's an amazing character, but in universe, he's an actual living, breathing human being. He doesn't fit neatly into one box or one archetype. He's not the political statesman trying to make things right, aka Gilliman. He's not the secretive knight trying to destroy all those who oppose him, aka the Lion. He's not the bitter child trying to finally prove that he was right, aka Perturabo. Nor is he the tragic beast of a man driven to madness like Angron. The Khan doesn't fit into one neat little archetype, because he is a complex character, he's a human being. And ironically, he fits into the best archetype yet one of the rarely used as a good character. Khan is human, he makes human choices, human decisions, and at the end of the day, that is so different to what we get with all the other Primarchs, that when we see it, we tend to either 1, forget it, or 2, hyperfixate on it. The first reaction to when people learn about the White Scars is to forget them. Simple as. But then as people learn about them, there are 2 responses. 1, the most common, is that we hyperfixate on how awesome and amazing they are and that they're super great and that they're perfect, which they are not. Or 2, we do the opposite. We tend to hyperfixate on how kind of mid they are, how dumb they are and how they could have done things better, and we cast blame where no blame should ever be caught. And ironically, we end up in this completely messed up state. And either people completely ignore the existence of their Primarch, as well as the chapter and the Legion as a whole, which in return ignores all of their deeds, all of the books, all of the stories and everything that they've done, or we completely change them from being a balanced take that has really great moments and really terrible moments into them being the best of the best or the worst of the worst. Yet in reality, they're both neither that, yet also that included. Why? Because they're just a great written character, because they have moments that make you go, wow, these guys are amazing, they're great, I love them. But they also have moments that make you go, wow, these guys suck, I fucking hate them. And the Khan personifies this perfectly. There are moments, particularly when he's dealing with his own legion, that make you question the Khan. You question him. I question him. Why do you treat your fellows like that? Why do you decide to do it like this? Why didn't you do it differently? Honestly, it's one of those things that I find really amusing about the 40k community. You know, there's often a joke that's thrown around by my friends. The joke goes that the 40k community doesn't understand any lore that is more than a few sentences long, i.e. they only understand the surface lore. The Imperium is the Imperium, the Eldar are the Eldar, the Orcs are the Orcs, the Tower, Primarch is a Primarch, and that's that. Anything else they call you dumb for it. But obviously that's a joke. Doesn't apply to everyone. Now, that joke does hold a little bit of water, There are definitely a breed of 40k fans who are a bit thick around the skull, but generally speaking, that's not a lot of us. In 40k, the whole idea of that's wrong lore is a very big part of the community, and I'm sad to say that that's the case. 40k fans, some of them, they love picking out little nitpicks of lore here and there, and they love pointing at someone and telling them, no, you're actually wrong, this is the correct way, and this is just incorrect. Hence why you notice 40k is incredibly polarized. So I think it's really funny, also a little sad, if I'm being honest, that we have a case of the Khan, who is basically 40k's most balanced, well-written character. I'm just going to come out and say it, at least in the Primarchs, the most well-written, well-balanced, complex character. And I'll put my line as a 40k YouTuber on that. Easily. But in the same vein, there are people who denounce him as a fence-sitter who didn't do anything until it was too late, but there are also people who laud him as the greatest, most perfect Primarch. But the point of his character is that he's none of those things. He's a balance in the middle, and it is very funny, but also it's quite a failing on the 40k community as a whole that we don't end up seeing a perfectly written character as a perfectly written character. We instead have to throw him as really good or really bad when he's just in the middle as he's supposed to be. Now, I suppose I could go on and on about, the wide aspects of 40k's culture, but frankly, I don't want to. That conversation gets old and I don't really gain much from it. I don't think you gain much from it either. But if I had to give a takeaway to all this, and to sum up the Khan story, in Warhammer 40k, we're so careful what is right lore, what is wrong lore. We often fail to ask, is it good lore? And let's be honest here, good lore to most people is what they believe is right lore, and that's the ultimate failing of the 40k community. So, I want to pose this question to all of you. Whether you are a Khan lover, like myself, or a Khan hater, like the few people I saw, when you look at Jaghatai Khan, when you look at this character, which do you think is better for the setting overall? A character that is basically perfect, that makes all the right decisions, and that does everything correctly? A character that's perfectly reasonable, perfectly understanding, just never does anything wrong? Or a character who's completely rubbish, who makes a bunch of stupid decisions, who's somewhat hypocritical, and who doesn't have any values to stand on, and is just kind of a wet noodle at times? Do you think that that dichotomy is better, or for the setting as a whole, wouldn't it be better to have an actual human being, a complex, balanced character that makes his mistakes, but is still reasonable and understanding? Not always perfect, but not always terrible. A great character, not in universe, but out of universe. For the setting of Warhammer 40k, wouldn't that be amazing to have? Wouldn't that be better? Because as I said, we could use him as a measure to his other Primarchs, to his other brothers, both the lesser and the greater. So ultimately, what people get wrong about the Khan is that he is a great character. He's not perfect, but he's not terrible. He's not the best, but he's not the worst, because he's human. And there's an argument that you could say that he is the best character in that case, and I'm not gonna lie, I would argue that. But in a completely non-biased, balanced take, much like the Khan himself, whether you love him or hate him in-universe, we can all agree that out-of-universe, he is one hell of a character. So the next time you look up the Khan, remember, you may love him for his throat singing, and you may hate him for his indecisiveness, but looking at it objectively, in terms of a well-written character, the Khan is what reminds us what a Primarch should be, and he is the standard by which all are measured, not because he is the most perfect, nor because he's the most terrible, but simply because he is the most balanced. And in my opinion, that makes him one hell of, if not the best, Primarch character in Warhammer 40k. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys really love the Khan? Do you guys really hate him? And did you guys see the Khan for what he was supposed to be? I.e. an actual balanced, normal human being in a realm full of superhumans that jump from one directive to another? And what do you guys think about my whole thing about 40k fans and how we tend to polarize things? Is that something that you guys have thought about much in the lore as a whole? Or have you only really focused on the in-universe stuff rather than the out-of-universe hobby? I would love to hear your thoughts down below, but I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching, and even more massive thank you to my members. Shout out to my brand new member, Sean IRL7, who joined at the Sergeant tier. Thank you, sir, for your support and patronage, and welcome to the core. And a very big massive shout out to all of my other awesome members and patrons. Shout out to my Lieutenant tier members, Mr. Eddie V3 and Miss Major of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Warsmith.Fireheart, and Mr. Corn's Butcher. Shout out to my Corporal tier members, Mr. Bowen, and Mr. Tremail the Math Kitty. And then finally, but certainly not least, shout out to my Private tier members, Mr. Thomas Waslons, Mr. Ivan_SVW, Mr. Michael Hayeda, and Mr. Hattori's Cuz. And very big shout out to my Patreon members, Mr. Fortus Unum, General Alexander, and Mr. Bulwin. Thank you guys also very much for doing this. It means the absolute world to me. The fact that you guys do this means that I can get that one step closer to making this my full-time vocation, and the fact that you guys have this much faith in me is humbling, if nothing else. So, if you want to join these awesome guys and gals, sign up with our memberships, and the Patreon is coming soon. I just need to do a little bit of a revamping for it. And you get a bunch of awesome benefits like getting these videos early, as well as some behind the scenes stuff, progress updates, any type of new stuff that comes up, votes, hand in making the channel, and if anything major happens, you guys will be the first to gain access to it and to gain help in making this channel run. But remember, this will always be free, and if you don't give me $1, I will love you just the same as you if you gave me $100. Yes, I will. Mwah! So, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching. Again, comment down below, what do you guys think about the con? Do you agree with my thing? Do you disagree with it? And overall, what exactly do you think the con is in Warhammer 40k? But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You be beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank y'all also very much for watching. Make sure to stay loyal out there, boys and girls. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss Rangers. I can't wait to get a bunch of comments where people don't actually watch the video, but they're just going to read the title of the thumbnail and give me a full essay about why the Khan is the greatest character to ever exist.